Oh, hey. Oh, hello, welcome. Came back. In this weather too. Ready to see all my friends. Yes. Ava, yeah, Avery. Caroline, yes. Emmy, Addie. Keegan, good to see you. And of course, Mr. Eric, good to see you as well. Great, I'm glad you all came back. Yeah, this is the Philly Nature Center. Good to have you all with us, especially on a day like today. And I'm sorry. Are some of you maybe new here? Let me introduce myself. My name, of course, is Dr. Hootenanny O'Brien, and I'm sorry, what? Are you saying my name is not Dr. Hootenanny O'Brien?
You're Mr.
All right, you got me. That was a joke. That's just a joke. We like to joke here at the Philly Nature Center. My name is not, in fact, Dr. Hootenanny O'Brien. It is Mr. Nick. But I am the chief ornithologist here at the Philly Nature Center. And this is the final week of Bird Appreciation Month. That's right. And we are celebrating birds, particularly owls. Yes, owls are very wise birds, but at the same time, you may have noticed, there's a storm raging outside, and it's keeping us all indoors. So we haven't been able to go anywhere right now. We're waiting for the storm to pass, but I think everything's going to be okay. What do you think? Whoa, it's okay. Hey, guys. Whoa, no, it's okay. It's just a storm. Not the lights. It's okay. Come on. Oh, guys, calm. No need to worry. No need to fear. No, Sean, I don't think we should build a fire here. I think we'll be Rufus, calm down. No, everything's gonna be fine. There's no reason. See? Lights back on. Yeah, no need to worry. I mean, there's nothing wrong with being scared. Fear is natural. We can't allow it to make us, go crazy. We have to, put our fears and give them back to God. He's wise and knowledgeable. We can't allow our fear to cause us to do things that are, against God's will. Actually, that reminds me of a story. If you've been with us the past few weeks, we've been talking about wisdom. We've been asking the question, what does God know? God knows everything about the past, the present, and the future. Because God knows everything, when we're scared, when we're afraid, we can put our faith in God because He knows exactly what to do. We don't want fear causing us to go away from God into sin or into wrong, into mistakes. We have to put our faith in God. We've also been talking about King Solomon. King Solomon was a very, very wise king. He got all his wisdom from God. And because of that, he was able to become one of the richest men who ever lived. But King Solomon wasn't perfect. He wasn't a perfect king. He made mistakes. And today we're going to see how some of the mistakes that Solomon made caused him to drift further and further away from God. And there were consequences from that, falling away. So we'll talk about today. I have a good story for you. Check it out.
King Solomon loved God, but he did not love God with his whole heart. Solomon had hundreds of wives, and many of them were from other nations. Solomon's wives turned him away from God, and he began to worship the false gods that his wives worshiped. God was angry. God said to Solomon, "Since you have done this, I will take the kingdom away from you. You will be the king the rest of your life, but when your son becomes king, he will lose everything except for one tribe."
When Solomon died, his son Rehoboam became king. The people told Rehoboam, "Your father, Solomon, made us work too hard. We will gladly serve you if you make our work easier." Rehoboam thought about it and asked his father's friends for advice. "Be kind to the workers, and they will work for you forever," they said. But Rehoboam ignored that advice.
He asked his own friends what he should do. Rehoboam listened to his friends and told the workers, "My father did not make you work hard enough. I'll make you work even harder." The people did not want to serve a king like Rehoboam, so they made Jeroboam king. Jeroboam had been one of Solomon's officials. Now he was king of the northern kingdom of Israel. Only one tribe remained under Rehoboam's rule, and that was the southern kingdom of Judah.
Rehoboam did not like being king of only one tribe. He planned to attack the northern kingdom of Israel, but God sent a prophet to stop him. The prophet had a message from God. "Do not fight them. The people of Israel are part of your family. I am the Lord, and I am in control of what is happening." So Rehoboam went home.
Now, Jeroboam was the king of Israel, but he wasn't a good king. When the people of Israel traveled to Jerusalem to worship God at the temple, Jeroboam worried that they would start thinking of Rehoboam as their leader. So Jeroboam made 2 golden calves and told the people, "Going to Jerusalem is too difficult for you. Here are your gods who brought you up from the land of Egypt. You can worship them." What Jeroboam did was a sin. Those calves did not lead God's people out of Egypt. God led his people out of Egypt. Jeroboam led all the people to worship the false gods instead of the one true God.
King Solomon failed to lead God's people perfectly. God's people needed a better king, a perfect king. Through David's family, God would send his own son, Jesus Christ, to be a perfect king over God's people forever. Jesus is greater than Solomon. Jesus brings his people together and leads them back to God.
God divided Israel into 2 kingdoms because Solomon sinned. Solomon was very, very wealthy. He had everything he could ever ask for. But he was also very afraid that something would come along and disrupt all that wealth. Because of that, he made peace with the surrounding kingdoms and surrounding rulers to make sure that he would keep his wealth and they wouldn't bother him. So, in order to make peace, he would marry their princesses. But he had all these wives from all these kingdoms. But these kingdoms, they didn't worship the one true God. They worshiped false gods, idols. And these wives brought their idols into the kingdom. And Solomon, in order to make peace, he had to make peace with those idols. So, he began to worship those idols as well. An idol is anything you worship that isn't God. It could be money, power, beauty, food, sports. It could be anything that's not God. We're only to worship the one true God. So, Solomon's heart began to stray from God. He became obsessed with wealth. He started mistreating his people. He had it really hard on him. And it was causing lots of problems. So that when Solomon eventually passed away, his son picked up those same traits and began to treat his people even worse than Solomon had. One of Solomon's advisors, he began to lead other people to worship something other than the one true God. People began to make the same mistake as the early Israelites had when they left Egypt and then began to worship the golden calf. People were falling away from God. Their hearts were not with God. As you know, we've been talking about how God is saving the world from sin, evil, and death through the family of Abraham, the Israelites, and ultimately through Jesus Christ. And as God's moving that plan forward, he had to divide the nation of Israel because of Solomon's sin and the idolatry that was going along. He's moving that plan forward. He's getting rid of all the idolatry. But, you see, again, Solomon's sin resulted from his fear. He feared disruption in his life, disruption in his wealth. He feared that. He was afraid. And it caused him to fall away from God and to go after idols that he thought would preserve him and give him security he needed. But ultimately, security comes from God. Again, it's okay to be scared. It's okay to be afraid. But when we are afraid, when we are scared of things that happen in our lives, we shouldn't fall away from God into idolatry. We need to go towards God, towards His will, towards His word. That's where ultimate security lies. He will see us through every single time. We just have to put our faith in Him.
Hey there, I'm Pastor Brian, and it's time for questions from kids. Daniel from Wilmington, North Carolina asks,
Does it matter how often I go to church? Will God be mad at me if I'd rather stay home?
Daniel, thank you for asking that question because I think you're not the only one who asks that. You know, today's Bible story really gives us some insight to how we can answer that question though. Because today we saw that Solomon's heart was not completely devoted to God, and that got him in great trouble. Over time, he just gradually abandoned God. He walked away from God, stopped worshiping God with all of his heart, and that's why God disciplined him. And here's what matters. Here's what we have to see. God was upset because Solomon's heart was not right. Solomon had walked away from God in his heart, which caused him to walk away in his actions. And so your question, does God care that we go to church every week? What happens if I don't want to go? Well, here's the thing. I need to take that into two parts. The first one is, does God care if I go every week? God is not keeping some cosmic scoreboard. He's not keeping track of every time you're there and for how long and so forth. It's not about that. But that second part of the question, I think, is where we have to camp out. That I would ask you, why don't you want to gather together with the church? Why don't you want to go and worship God? That's what God cares about. You see, because if we love God, if we are grateful for what He's done for us, then we should want to gather together with other believers and worship Him on a regular basis, understanding there are times that we can't make it to church. There may be times where we're sick, there may be times where we're traveling or so forth. But in general, our heart posture should be one of wanting to be part of God's church, worshiping with other people who love God like we do. So here's a question for you. How can you show your love for God this week?
Our verse for this series comes from James 1:5, a great book of wisdom. James writes, "If any of you lacks wisdom, he should ask God, who gives generously to all without finding fault, and it will be given to him." If we're ever scared, if we're ever afraid, we can go to God and He will give us the wisdom and knowledge to see us through. That reminds me of one of my favorite verses in the Bible, written by Solomon, Proverbs 1:7. The beginning of wisdom is fear of God. See, it's not okay to be afraid, but if we revere God, if we honor Him, if we submit ourselves to Him and His word and His will, we get the knowledge and wisdom we need. Solomon should have remembered that later on in his life. But he didn't fear God. He feared things that weren't God. Because of that, he strayed away. His heart was not in the right place. But if we get our hearts in the right place, if we honor God and follow His commandments and put our faith in Him, we don't need to be afraid anymore. We can have that faith, and He will give us the knowledge and wisdom we need to see us through. God will always see us through, and when we follow Him, He will give us just what we need to succeed in His purpose and His plan. I believe that. I believe that because God knows everything about the past, present, and the future. He knows it, and He will give us the wisdom we need to get through life and all the hard times that may come our way. Woo! So guys, there's nothing to be afraid of. We just put our faith in God and hey, I think the storm's over with. Oh yeah, the clouds are going away. Dark clouds are gone. Great. Thank you, God. See, everything's always okay. Put our faith in God. May have some rough times. God will see us through. Will give us the wisdom and knowledge we need. What a great way to end Bird Appreciation Month. All right, that's it for today. We'll see you again next week. We'll have a new series and a great time. Sean will be with us. We'll see you again. God bless.
Hey kids, Mr. Nick here. You know, in the past, your friend and mine, Sean the Sheep, has had many adventures. He's been a rock star, a doctor, a bird watcher, even an astronaut who went to Mars. Well, now is your chance to choose Sean's next adventure. That's right, you get to choose what Sean does next. Yes, it is the Choose Sean's Adventure contest. It's very simple. Just think of an idea of what you want Sean's next adventure to be, then send that idea with your name to this email address. One lucky kid will have Sean go on his or her adventure, so send in your ideas, and don't forget to see us this weekend. We'll have another online Sunday school lesson. We look forward to seeing you. God bless.